So, look what was removed, everybody. It's basically that cat that takes out all the extra sound. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. And well, today what we're going to be doing, as you see with the car in the back, is actually discussing the VRSF downpipe. Now I'm going to go for a drive in a few and hop in the car, but today's video is really just going to focus on really the noise of the car. Now I'm sure most of everybody would agree that has a G20 330i that it's a little bit muted. It's not very loud. And so how can we resolve that? Well, what you could do, actually, like I've done recently, and what I'm going to get into with this discussion, is install a downpipe. Now what I actually did was I installed a Catless downpipe, the VRSF version, and this allowed the car to be a bit louder, and I'm going to try to demonstrate that throughout today's video. And I'm going to explain why I went with the Catless and all that stuff. But like I was saying, I'm sure most would agree that the car just seems too muted. I mean, it does sound good in general, but really only when you're, I guess you could say, revving the engine and you could hear some of the burbles. But when you actually start to drive and get on the car, sometimes when you're going on a fun drive, the wind noise and what's around you blocks out the actual car noise. So how do we want to fix that? Well, maybe you could try what I did, and I'm going to try to demonstrate that and show why I think this VRSF downpipe is a good decision. Now, I'm not sponsored by them or in any way, but I just wanted to discuss this to try to help some of you guys out that might be considering this. So let's go in the car and let's get to this video. So the VRSF downpipe, how is it? How much does it cost? Well, just from VRSF themselves, it only costs $280. So not overly expensive. It's actually a pretty cheap one, of course, because it is catless. So if we're looking to save a bit of money, I'll say this is definitely the way to go. Now, of course, I'm not sponsored by them. I'm only just doing this review because I know a lot of people, at least with the 330i, are looking at downpipes to kind of try to increase noise. And this is honestly one of the more affordable options that are just easy to do. So it cost me $280 just to get the downpipe from VRSF. And then if you're also wanting to prevent a check engine light and you have a 2021 model like me, then you're also going to need an O2 spacer. Now, if you already have a tune because you have a 2020 or 2019 model like Boot Mod 3, then you could hide the check engine light, of course, just by simply using that tune, and it'll hide it so that you can have that downpipe without any problems. But because I have a 2021 model, I cannot do that. I had to get an O2 spacer. So that's how I would resolve the issue. And then if you install it yourself, you also are spending no extra money, and it's honestly not too difficult. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube already showing you how to do that. And yeah, you could spend basically $300 and not only get better sound, but you could also get more performance. And I'll also discuss that a bit later as well. So what are the benefits of this catless downpipe? Well, first off, you get more noise. Now on the lower RPMs, I'll say it's not too crazy, it's nothing too noticeable when it is daily driving. It honestly is not too much louder than stock. You do get more constant turbo whistle, and I'll try to demonstrate that, but I know it's going to be a little bit harder to hear. So, I'm probably going to hear too much right there, and I'm going to do some more revs later. But there's just a turbo whistle, even in the low RPMs, but it's not too much louder. What else? When you rev your engine or do cold starts, especially cold starts, it is louder, which I'm sure a lot of people will like that, but it's not obnoxiously loud. I'd say maybe around 60% louder than stock form. But besides that, I mean, when you're driving around daily, like in comfort mode or say in eco mode, it's not too much louder. It's just a little bit louder than stock. But where it really starts to see some improvement, at least in my opinion, and make more noise is in sport mode. And that's because in sport mode, you get some constant burbles. So like I just push on the gas, let off the gas, and I'm getting burbles. And when you downshift, you get burbles. You get a more consistent amount of burbles, which I think a lot of people like. A lot of people like that. But not only the burbles, you also get when you get into the higher RPMs and start actually having some fun driving the car. That's where you get more noise as well. You could really hear. I mean, just the car open up, you could hear the exhaust finally. And in my opinion, I feel like the car is a bit too muted stock. When I'd be driving around, maybe wanted to go for a fun drive, when I had the windows down because I want to hear the car, I would actually hear more of the wind noise than I actually would hear of the car, which to me is a negative. I mean, when you're going for a fun drive, this is supposed to be a sporty car, you want to be able to hear the car. You just don't want to hear the outside wind noise when you have your windows down. You want to be able to have fun and enjoy the car and feel connected to the car. So this downpipe definitely fulfills that for me. It's not obnoxious loud, which I didn't want something too crazy. I want to be able to drive around and not draw a bunch of attention just going 10 miles or just driving through some residential streets. And you do get burbles and some turbo whistle, but it's not obnoxious, and you still feel okay driving the car. I mean, you don't feel like you're making a fool of yourself in situations where you shouldn't be, I guess I could say. But what else? What are the cons, I should say now, of this? Are there any cons with adding this downpipe? I'll say that there are two, at least that bug me, that I've come to realize so far as cons. Now the first one I'm going to talk about is probably the most obvious one when it comes to a catless downpipe, and that's that when you add a catless downpipe, there will be a smell. You will smell the exhaust fumes, and it smells rich. I mean, if you don't like that smell, it's probably going to bother you, and if you have a sensitive nose, you might not like it. Now, to me, honestly, this isn't too big of a deal. And why is that? Well, I guess it's because you don't smell it when doing daily driving. I've come to realize that you really only smell it if you let the car idle for a bit, and maybe you're just sitting there with the windows down, maybe trying to stay cool in the car. Then you'll smell it. Or maybe if you're at a stoplight for too long and the wind catches it the right way, you might smell it. And I mostly realize it because I use remote start for my car. So when I'm walking up to the car after I use remote start, I let it cool down before I get in sometimes when it's a hot day. And I'll walk up to the car and I'll realize, hey, I can smell the fumes. Anyone who says they can't, I know I've read some reviews online that say, oh, it's not noticeable, you can't smell it. I don't know if they're smelling, I don't know if they have a bad nose or what's going on with them, because you could definitely smell it. There's an evident smell. And I mean, it's like I said, it's not too big of a deal for me because you don't smell it when you're driving. You only smell it during certain situations. So I wouldn't view that as too big of a negative, and it honestly just reminds me of some older cars when I was younger, like maybe that my dad had or something, like some old muscle cars. Now, besides that, what's the other con? Well, I'll say that if you have a 2021 model like me, it's gonna be that you may end up with a check engine light. And that's because you're only able to use the O2 spacer to try and prevent that check engine light. Because as many of you guys know that have know about at least these cars, the G20s, at least the current year, the 2021 and 2022, the DME is locked. So at least for the moment, people are just barely recently releasing information that they're able to unlock it. But the moment that I'm recording this, they haven't been made public and the DMEs are locked. So because of that, I can't get a tune to prevent that check engine light, and I had to go with the O2 spacer route. And like I said, it's only like a $10, $15 thing to try to prevent it. It just tries to trick the O2 sensor into thinking that the car is not running as rigid as it is by putting some space between it. And that's why the check engine light basically comes on, is just because the O2 sensor smells that, hey, the car is running pretty rich, and it's sensing that you don't have a cat. So when you put the O2 spacer on like I did, at least for the initial part of when I did it, it did work actually. I mean, for a couple weeks I didn't get the check engine light. I think it was like 2 weeks or so, and then out of nowhere, I think I was just driving randomly, and I may have stepped on the exhaust or stepped on the gas a bit more, the pedal, and out of nowhere the check engine light came on. And that wasn't too big of a deal because thankfully I have JB4 with the Bluetooth, so I was able to delete the code without any problems. I just go onto there, delete it, and the check engine light went away. And it stayed off for like another 2 weeks, and then it came back on again, just out of nowhere. So I've come to realize that this check engine light will come on randomly out of nowhere. It's been off for a couple weeks now, thankfully. I haven't seen it come back on, but it's come on maybe 3 or 4 times altogether, and I'll just delete it. So honestly, it's not too big of a deal, because technically I can just leave that check engine light, and sorry there's so much light. Technically I can just leave the check engine light on. I wouldn't have a big problem. It's not like it affects the car in any way. It's just the car is sensing that the sensor, the O2 sensors, sensing the lack of a cat, so that's why the check engine light comes on. So I could drive the car normally, it's not a problem, but just me seeing that light, I don't like seeing the check engine lights, honestly. That's a bother to me, so that's why I view that as a negative. I don't like being able to see that. And it's just an extra thing for me to do, to go out and delete the light. But neither of these two cons are that big of deals, really, if you think about them. They don't affect the car in super negative ways. They don't affect the driving experience. And in fact, they actually benefit the driving experience. And that's where I'll go into discussing this part, is not only do you get the sound, which I'm going to try to demonstrate a bit right here. I'll try to do it. So not only do you get that sound, but also when you add this, at least if you add a tune with the downpipe, you do get some performance gains. Now the reason why I say with the tune is because when you do add the downpipe, you do release some back pressure. So on a stock car, you will end up with less throttle lag or turbo lag, I should say. You do end up with less turbo lag, and you're able to get higher numbers with the turbo, or I should say allow a higher PSI. But I mean, because your car regulates how much boost you could already produce on a stock form, you're not going to see too much performance benefits, honestly. So that's where a tune, or at least some kind of piggyback where you could build more boost, that's where that comes into bigger play. This allows you to really take advantage of the downpipe and allow it to build the boost that the lack of a cat is allowing with that release of that back end pressure. So with a tune or some kind of piggyback, you will end up with some performance gains. Without it, you may end up with like 5-10 horsepower, probably max, I could imagine. But at least with a tune, you could go anywhere from 20 to 30. And of course, you'll end up with less turbo lag, which will be a benefit. And that's something I honestly noticed and have been noticing. The decrease in turbo lag, I feel like the car just feels quicker, and I'm sure it is quicker. And I'm not going to actually do any comparing to stock right now. I'll do that later. I'll do that in the next video and actually use the draggy, pull it out, compare numbers with the stock car, and show you guys all the benefits. But this video, I really wanted to just focus on reviewing the VRSF downpipe, showing you guys the sound and trying to demonstrate that for you guys. And I'm going to keep doing that right now. honestly, I mean, with the release of the back end pressure and the release of the cat, you could feel how much quicker the car is. I mean, when you're shifting gears, I mean, you don't have that as much turbo lag. You could honestly, it just feels like it picks it up so much quicker. And honestly, that it feels a lot better just driving it. You can notice a difference, and I'm only using JB4. And even on the stock car, you're going to notice this. That turbo lag is reduced by a good amount, a noticeable amount, I'll say. And that's probably one of the bigger benefits that I like as well. The biggest benefit to me, of course, is the sound. I'm hoping you guys could hear it, because I know with the video it's not the easiest thing. But I guess, how would I wrap up this review? And you probably guys are going to see some drive-bys in between this and maybe after this as well. Well, would I recommend it if I didn't already purchase this and install it at the moment? Would I get it again? Would I spend the $300 that I did for the downpipe and the spacer? I personally would, for all the benefits that you get, including the increased noise when you're driving, having a good time, the burbles, which I like, and also the performance benefits. I think they far outweigh the cons, which are simply some smell, which, honestly, like I said, doesn't bother me as much, and the check engine light that could come on. And I think it's because neither of these things affect the performance in any way, and your car still drives good. But I guess if you have a sensitive nose, then of course this might not be for you. And if you hate a check engine light, you don't want to see that on at all, and you have a 2021 model like me and you're not currently tuned, well, then this might not be for you. But just hearing that sound, I mean, it sounds so good now. And I think just for that alone, that makes it worth it. And man, it just makes those gear shifts feel so much better, because you're not getting that turbo lag when you're putting your foot down. It just feels good. So yeah, I do recommend it. You could look down on my links below. I do have this VRSF downpipe linked. It's the Catless one, like I said. I mean, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach me down below. I'm hopefully you might not see anything more after this if I already included the videos before this with the drive-bys and all that, which I'm probably going to do. I got a new camera, so I'm trying to switch up how I make these videos a bit, and just add some more things, some different dynamics to it. But yeah, catch you guys in the next one. I appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't subscribed already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. It does help me. Also hit that like button. That helps me a lot too. And leave comments. I mean, let me know what y'all want to see. I may be doing an intake eventually. That might be the next thing. This downpipe was more priority because it has bigger benefits. But I do think I want more of that turbo spool sound, so I may end up doing that. But yeah. Man, just those burbles. Man, the car sounds good. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys.